What's up and welcome back to the channel. The name is Ninja Knight. Make sure you like, share, subscribe and hit the notification bell up above for future uploads and check out the links I've posted down below. Thank you. So here I have Ray Fisher, and I know you're sitting there saying to yourself, who? Because this guy has effectively torpedoed his career. This guy was only starting to gain notoriety after he had done the part of Cyborg in the Justice League. He's worked on True Detective with the great Mahershala Ali, and his career and his credits from now on are probably going to go far downhill for what he attempted to do. And what he attempted to do, as I've pointed out in previous videos, is to engage in cancel culture against an individual. Well, it's absolutely and positively backfired on him. Now, what's interesting about Ray Fisher is he was quite supportive and loyal towards Zack Snyder, particularly with the ordeal that Zack Snyder went through. He started to get some sort of support not too recently from Jason Momoa. However, Jason Momoa, funnily enough, has been entirely quiet on this one in terms of his own Instagram. So it looks like the heads aren't going above the parapet now, lads. So here we have a statement from Ray Fisher, and it says this: I've received official confirmation that Warner Brothers Pictures has decided to remove me from the cast of The Flash. Now, for anybody that doesn't know, The Flash is another movie that I think is going to encounter an awful lot of problems, especially with the individual that they have writing it, Christina Hodson. Absolute lunatic. I've done a video on that already, and they've included Michael Keaton in this part of The Flash as well too. Quite unsure as to why they decided to do that with the multiverse, and now they're talking about possibly removing Ben Affleck as Batman and introducing Michael Keaton as Batman. Wouldn't make sense given that Michael Keaton is far older, but hey ho, this is the way Warner Brothers are doing things, particularly att&t as well. att&t have also given contracts to high-powered members of a certain three-letter group that have been causing absolute uproar across America for the last couple of years. Very strange as well that they've decided not to side with this guy on this one. This seemed like an attempt for him to join that little movement and to say, well, I'm going to have my piece of it, I'm going to get myself in here, and I'm going to make sure that I'm going to be able to cancel someone else to further my career. It's absolutely backfired on him, which is absolutely hilarious. I strongly disagree with their decision, but is one that is unsurprising. Now, for anyone that doesn't know, when you start to talk an awful lot of nonsense about your employer, and it seems like it's an awful lot of nonsense because it doesn't seem like Ray was very cooperative what went on. He's very sketchy on the details, he's very shady on it, he hasn't said anything in regards to what happened to him. It seems like he just needed to pull up the big boy pants and get on with it, and it seems like he decided that he was going to have a bit of a problem with that, and it seems like the company have just decided, we've enough characters here, don't need you, good luck. So very interesting stuff. Despite the misconceptions, Cyborg's involvement in The Flash was much larger than a cameo, and while I do mourn the lost opportunity to bring Victor Stone back to the screen, bringing awareness to the actions of Walter Hamada will prove to be a much more important contribution to our world. So he's still chasing this one, and believe you me, he's probably going to get a deal somewhere, or he's going to join one of these prolific groups, by the way, and he's going to rise through the ranks and that, because these people would see this guy, they would say, well, he's some sort of celebrity, let's latch on to him, and they're going to try and gain some sort of credibility. You see, these groups are all well and good for these people to say we're signing them up until they decide to step out of line, and then the company goes, snip, done. So this is an important thing when you realise that people have been highly against what Ray Fisher has been doing, particularly because of the facts of the matter of, as we know at this moment in time, he's not produced any real receipts, and when they had a conference call, he decided to end it fairly quickly, particularly with the investigator. So it was a guy that was constantly unhappy with things, but never said exactly what, and has made soft digs at Jeff Johns and John Berg, which is very curious in itself. So on 30th of December 2020, I made it clear that I cannot, with a clear conscience, participate in any production associated with the current president of DC Films, Walter Hamada. Now, that was a stupid move, because anybody with any sort of brain would say, oh, I'm not really known at the moment, there's not an awful lot of places calling me up, work is a bit scarce now, I'll just do it and I'll get on with it, because that's what an awful lot of people do. Like, people that are even listening to this channel, you get up in the morning, you might go to a job that you don't like, you might not like your boss, you might have had a run-in with your boss, but at the end of the day, you have to put food on the table and you have to get out there and get a bit of work done. And that's the way it is. This guy didn't see fit. He actually thought that the company was going to bend to his will. And this is what I'm talking about, these SJWs and this ideology. They think that they're going to make companies bend to their will, and people as well too. And I have to say, I'm pretty impressed here now with DC Films and Walter Hamada with what they've done. As a result, they decided to say, you're going to try and cancel us. No, actually, you're out of here. Because he's going to pick up this guy after this. He's going to be absolutely radioactive. The reasoning behind that declaration was twofold. Walter's possible attempt to undermine the Justice League investigation in order to protect his friend and former co-president Geoff Johns. Now, from a number of individuals within the comic book community that have known Geoff over the last few years, said that he's a pretty nice guy and a pretty decent guy. Has what he's done translated well to the screen? No. And he's effectively, as it seems, gone from that position. And I think overall we might get back to a Zack Snyder vision, which I'm okay with. An awful lot of Snyder fans are unhappy with this one, but to me, I wouldn't be worrying about this one whatsoever. Walter's attempt to protect himself by contributing to the public dissemination of lies and misinformation about myself and the Justice League investigation in Warner Brothers Pictures September 4th statement to the Wrap. Bear in mind, Walter Hamada interfering with the Justice League investigation is a completely separate issue than the investigation itself. And while Walter's behaviour was not a point of focus for the investigation of the Justice League reshoots, his dangerous enabling actions during the investigation process must be called to account. This has been going on for a number of years, and only now in the last year or so has this fella gotten a little bit uppity about this. Wonder why. It seems to coincide with something that happened, doesn't it? On July 7, 2020, during a 57-minute long phone call with Walter, I made multiple attempts to have him escalate my claims of misconduct against Geoff Johns, Joss Whedon and John Berg through the proper channels. Rather than escalate the situation when initially asked, Walter disparaged Joss Whedon and John Berg in an attempt to cover for Geoff Johns. When I alerted Walter that Geoff was, in fact, a major contributor to the issues experienced, including blatant racism, I don't believe that whatsoever. I mean, Geoff Johns was one of the people that introduced the Black Wally West. That's nonsense, I think. And I mean, that was a decision in which I didn't agree with whatsoever. Walter tried, but to no avail, to get me to... Well, I will say, though, Geoff Johns did retcon it then and then ended up banking at Wallace West, the Wally from a different universe and stuff like that. So I suppose I won't hold too much against him. But to no avail, to get me to reveal the names of witnesses and other specifics that could be used to forewarn Geoff of the claims being brought against him. Walter even went so far as to sharply dismiss certain claims of mine as untrue because of his work experience and personal relationship with Geoff. This is incredible in itself. He's certainly coming out here trying to really attack Geoff Johns, and he's providing no credibility to his claims. This is essentially it. When he's been asked to provide credibility to his claims, he's saying, yeah, no, I know a guy and this guy's going to vouch for me. Nobody in that cast has come out and said these same things. You've had Gal Gadot has kind of said certain things. You've had Jason Momoa been like, yeah, I'm with you. Neither of them are saying that today. Nobody's putting the head above the parapet. They're saying nothing, which is very interesting, isn't it? Walter indicated that he was briefed on Joss Whedon's problematic behaviour well in advance of my speaking out on the 4th of July 2020. So this is another SJW phrase itself, problematic behaviour. What was problematic? Did he tell you to get on with it? Did he have a short fuse? Because that's what directors are like. This is what people are in those positions are like. They're under severe pressure. Whedon himself was probably under an awful lot of pressure. Obviously not condoning what he was doing if he was doing it, but I mean, it's a man's world at the end of the day in terms of what's going on here. If you're on set and he's calling the shots, he's the man. You have to listen to him. You can't just get up at the and say, well, I wanted to do this. That's not the part. And I mean, these people, particularly these actors, have gotten these notions that they think they're more important than what they are. You're an adult pretender. You are there to put into reality a comic book character that was created in fiction very long ago. You are not there to be making any sort of ridiculous suggestions. You're getting paid for the work that you're paid to do. Get on with it or go somewhere else if you weren't interested. That was it. So regardless of how he was made aware, Walter knew that there was legitimacy in my claims against Joss Whedon. Yet he persisted in trying to minimise and dismiss the situation, claiming that it is a producer's job to protect the director and that he was looking to move beyond anything to do with Zack Snyder's Justice League. So he probably didn't care at that point. He was like, yeah, I don't really care what this guy is saying because we're effectively going to be done with this universe pretty soon and we're going to rebuild it then in whichever way we want to do so going forward. And this seemed to have annoyed this guy. Now, probably his behaviour contributed to the cut of Joss Whedon's that really did cut down on his time. That might have been possible. It could have also been seeing the final result and seeing that he wasn't in the movie an awful lot was probably very bothersome to him, and he got a bit sour about it and decided to start all of this a couple of years after. It wasn't until I argued Walter down that he agreed to escalate my claims as asked, citing it as above his pay grade. Knowing that he had overstepped and that I had no intention of backing down, Walter made matters worse by making a tastelessly self-aware joke about wanting me to put him on Twitter about this. Well, here we are. So that's what he did, and I mean, this is what SJWs do. They go to Twitter with this sort of stuff, and they make unfounded claims where they hope that people won't see what they've been doing, and then they will hope then the mob will jump on board and that they will also help in their cause. Then I mean, you're seeing some individuals that decided to try to do the same against the likes of the Quartering there recently. They're out there trying to jump on Twitter when they knew that he was gone, and they were like, oh, I'm saying this, and they're complete and utter fabrications, complete and utter lies. And that's the danger of a thing like Twitter, because these people are coming on making unfounded claims. Fisher has been making unfounded claims on his Twitter and his Instagram. Like his Instagram, some of his Instagram stories have been pretty shocking to look at, because with the absolute blaseness that he's walking with, being like, yeah, I'm going to deal with this is going to get done. If you're truly hurt and upset, you'd be very visibly so done. He didn't, I mean, his acting is pretty much the same. It's very flat and very emotionless, but I mean, you would imagine that be coming out of him, where he didn't seem too bothered. I mean, if you were that bothered about it, could you imagine this happening in the day of John Wayne? John Wayne would have stood outside with someone like that. That'd have been just it. And they would have gotten over the differences. There wouldn't have been any of this nonsense going on your phone and complaining. Oh my God. Despite Walter's best efforts, the Justice League investigation was able to expose the racist, coercive, discriminatory and retaliatory behaviour of Geoff Johns during his tenure with Warner Media's affiliates. This also led to the more immediate parting of ways between Warner Media and Joss Whedon. Now, that is probably a result of the cancel culture. It's probably a result of some of the stories that have emerged about Joss Whedon. And again, that's people in positions now deciding to use it against other individuals. And depending on the situation, obviously, you have to look at that and say, well, is that warranted or is that not warranted? Companies are very fickle now at the moment, and they're starting to look at certain individuals, and rightly so, and saying, not going to work with them or not going to get them. But then again, then they're giving jobs then to certain other individuals then that have been saying mad stuff for years, and they're just giving them job hand over fist. It's very, very strange, and the double standard in which stuff is happening is quite incredible. Like, I mean, for example, there's an individual that's playing Mira, for example, on Aquaman 2, and they're debating like, oh, we might cut her out or we might have her. No, she should be gone. There shouldn't even be a question. And this is, I suppose, probably why Ray is a bit sour, because he's seeing her being kept on and he's been let go. Now, she hasn't gone out and talked anything about the company. She actually said nothing, and that was it. They were like, right, there are your actions, they were over here, no problem, that's not on company ground, we can't do anything about that, or we're not going to do anything about that more, should I say. And she's been left alone, as it seems. Whereas Ray decided to go outside and talk about the company, and if you're doing that, like, I mean, it's, what are you expecting, really? Where it may be legally and financially safer to quietly phase Geoff Johns out, or to let Joss Whedon exit of his own accord, I share neither of those responsibilities. My responsibilities are and have been to try to protect those that were brave enough to lend their voice to the Justice League investigation, to use what little power I possess to ensure that the workplace behaviour exhibited during the Justice League reshoots and its investigation never happens again. It's Hollywood, stuff has been happening for years, and Ray, if you're actually that offended by what's going on, you should have a bigger look at what's actually happening and some of the stuff that's been going on for years. Some stuff that Ricky Gervais called out last year or the year before when some sort of award show. He called it all out in front of them to their faces, and was there anyone upset by that by the end of the night? No. Did anybody look into what they were going to do? No. They're still signing up at Apple, they're still signing up at Netflix, they're still signing up at Disney. Nothing changed. Because if you want to talk about power and investigation and that, it's not going to not happen ever again. I mean, you have companies now that are trying to blame audiences on the characters that they've been putting out and casting of characters that they've been putting out over the last number of years, trying to blame the audience, which is very, very strange. No one in any profession should have to argue with their employer for their claims of abuse, racism and discrimination to be taken up to the proper chain of command. And no one, you should come to Ireland and have a look. I mean, some of the stuff going on here is madness as well in itself. And no one in any position of leadership should attempt to dissuade those wishing to report such claims from doing so. Like I said, you're in an industry there that has worse going on in it too. I think the fact that you got hurt over someone saying something to you, I think should say more about you than it does about them. And I think, like I said, bigger picture going on here. You might want to lend your voice to the crusade against certain other things that are happening there. You know, I mean, this is a guy, by the way, who flip-flopped from being a Bernie bro to being a Joey guy. I mean, that's how easy he flipped. He flipped immediately on a dime piece. He was all about Bernie for years and promoting him and all of that, and flipped on a dime piece. That's not a guy with great integrity or character or morals. If you have a horse in a race, you stick with that horse. You do not change it up. Know what I'm saying? So, I mean, even when you're looking at that from Ray Fisher's point of view, it's shady individual in terms of who he's supporting and what he's up to. Walter's actions have transformed this narrative from an investigation of on-set misconduct into 2017, so it's going on 3 years now, 4 years now, if you're in 2021 obviously, to the examination of the present-day cover-up culture of Hollywood. His contribution to Warner Brothers Pictures' September 4th statement to the rap was false, cowardly and reckless. So, cover-up culture of Hollywood, do tell more. Have you got receipts? If there's receipts, drop them, because you still haven't dropped any receipts whatsoever or any actual claims whatsoever of what was said. Why have you not done that? Possibly afraid of some sort of charge. Slander, libel, defamation. That could be something that he's probably thinking of, and he's probably been advised against doing. Instead, he's making unfounded claims, putting out what he thinks should happen. I mean, who are you to be talking about these people and what should happen? It's madness. I maintain that Walter Hamada is unfit for a position of leadership. The company obviously disagree, and I am willing at any point to submit to a polygraph test to support my claims against him. Now, polygraph tests as well, that's a pretty strange claim to make. I mean, they can be faked. There's certain things about them that can be altered, and that's a very strange one to do. I think personally, if that was the case, maybe if you had a contract to go beyond that, or a contract to go into the Flash, that'd be something probably would be the best thing to look at. Maybe I don't think going doing a polygraph to say what you were saying about Walter is true. Like, I mean, sure, in your own head you could probably think that was the truth or what happened. I don't know how many instances of workplace abuse Walter has attempted to cover in the past, but hopefully the Justice League investigation will be the last. Well, it's interesting to know that nobody else has had an issue whatsoever, isn't it? It's only you. So the way I would look at things like that is, if it's one individual having an issue like this and nobody else is saying anything, well, 9 times out of 10 it's probably that individual themselves. If it's 2, if it's 3, if it's 4, all with substantiated, backed up claims with receipts, then you have to take a look at it and say, well, no, actually something might be going on there. If you were looking at it though and saying, well, this is what I'm saying and I'm not really going to release what I'm saying or what actually happened, but I'm going to make all these allusions to this, I ain't believing it unless you're dropping receipts to it. And if the end of my time as Cyborg is the cause for helping to bring awareness and accountability to Walter Hamada's actions, I'll play it gladly. Onward, gravely, Ray. Accountability over entertainment. You reach a point in your life where you simply must take a stand. Mammy Teal Mobley, whoever that is. Very strange in itself. He's decided, career torpedoed. Happy enough with that. Won't be working with Walter again. Probably going to hope that maybe the MCU will pick him up, I'd say. That'd probably be one thing. Maybe he's going to try and hope that maybe someone in Lucasfilm might pick him up, because this is the type of individual that they like. This nonsense. Whereas I think the fact that he hasn't gotten much support from his co-stars, who he obviously would have been on set with quite a bit, along with some of the individuals, for example, the likes of, I can't quite think of the actor's name right now, Joan Morrison, or the actor who played Silas Stone, his father, within the movie, a very well-respected actor. He hasn't stood forward, I don't think, throughout this whatsoever, and said, I was there, I heard all of this, I know what's going on. He hasn't said anything. Ben Affleck hasn't said anything. Jason Momoa kind of said something, and then was like today now and yesterday he was like, I'm not going to say anything else now. I'm not saying nothing. Gal Gadot kind of made an allusion to, I wasn't really happy with what Whedon wrote in, the Flash line on Wonder Woman and stuff, but that was a body double that did that anyway. So, I mean, what are you talking about? That was really it. There was nobody else that was having an issue. If I was anybody that was having a certain issue with this movie, it's Billy Crudup, more or less cut out of the movie. You had Ezra Miller's character was completely butchered. That wasn't Barry Allen whatsoever. Ben Affleck was treated horribly throughout it. Henry Cavill, the behaviour in which they made Superman act within that movie and the things that they had him do was unbelievable. But you see what a graceful individual that Henry Cavill is, that he didn't go out and talk all this stuff. He understood fans' disappointment with it. He understood the criticism. But he didn't go out wildly then and say, well, it's Walter Hamada, and he said this to me and he threatened my career, and if I didn't do this and they did that. he acted a consummate professional and got on with it. And now, as a result, Henry Cavill is probably going to get rewarded for it. Okay, Justice League was a bad movie, directed by Joss Whedon. But now he's going to have another crack at it, and it seems like that he's getting possible cameos in other movies moving forward. I'd say Henry Cavill's absolutely delighted. So that's what Hollywood is like. And I mean, this guy is very naive to think that Hollywood wasn't going to do this to him. He was very naive to think that someone, particularly an executive, was going to fall over this. Now, what's interesting to note about this is, I think maybe if it was another company, maybe if it was a certain individual, possibly they might have fallen over this one. There would have been a bending of the knee. But I think that this is a massive statement from the company. And I think what this is stating, personally, I think it's them saying, we're not going to have this. We're not going to have cancel culture here. We're not going to have you threatening us with this. You're not going to try and bring a movement here. But then, like I said, the same thing is att&t then have signed prominent members of a 3-letter group. I mean, what's the consistency with that? And I mean, if Ray is trying to make some sort of allegations, now, I mean, is it possible that the company signed them people up and decided to work with them, and then decided, right, all right, we're going to be doing a little bit with these people and make it look like that we're sympathetic to their cause and bring some people on board? Will they ditch them? Possibly. Then you look at it then. But then again, they have Ava DuVernay still on the books at the moment, it seems, with New Gods, and she's posting radical nonsense on Twitter constantly. And I mean, they still have her on the books. They're not removing her, and she's an absolute fruitcake. So I don't believe what Ray Fisher is saying whatsoever, because there's so many other conflicting things that are happening. There is conflicting things happening with a certain individual that plays Mira, because certain places don't like you to say her name because it's very interesting. They don't like it. They don't like that news getting out there about her. Very odd. Then you have the likes of, for example, I think it's Joe Morton, I think the actor's name is. Silas Stone, not said a word, nothing. You've Harry J. Lennox, who I actually feel is probably the person that probably got shafted the most, who was going to play the Martian Manhunter. I think he got really badly shafted, particularly with the Joss Whedon cut. And we're going to see that now with him, and I'd have to say credit to him, consummate professional as well too, decided to move on, and now he's getting a shot, and I'm absolutely thrilled for him. So like I said, the DC comic company, particularly, well, the comic company's going away, but DC Films, if they're looking at this now, they're saying to themselves, well, we actually don't need your character can just go away. They can just replace his character with somebody else very easily. I mean, there's a multitude of characters they could use now within the Flash. If they're going to do multiverses, time travels and stuff like that, they can use anybody that they want really going forward with that. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens going forward. I think the Justice League, the Snyder Cut, is going to be something that they're going to temper and see, is Zack Snyder's world something people want to see more of. They certainly didn't want to see any more of Wonder Woman 1984, which was absolutely abysmal. So Snyder's way seems to be the way that people want to go. There's a big fan support behind it. There's an awful lot of pro-Snyder fans that are very disappointed with this news. I'm not disappointed with it, and I'm not shocked. I don't think that the company were ever going to bend to this individual. And I think the company are looking at it and saying, well, we've Harry J. Lennox on the books now that's going to play Martian Manhunter. We're talking about including Jon Stewart, who's a very popular Green Lantern, probably one of my favourite Green Lanterns, if not my favourite Green Lantern. We have him that he's going to come up now very soon. Do we need Ray Fisher as Cyborg? No. You've been surplus to requirements now. You're a character that an awful lot of people, they like the character. There's not a huge following out there for the character, I don't think, personally. I don't think anyone's beating down the doors to be Cyborg on Halloween. I don't think anybody's beating down the doors to buy the merchandise. It was actually some of the merchandise that I've seen languishing on shelves was the Cyborg character. But I mean, he'll probably say, oh, well, that was because I was cut out of the movie. Guarantee you, if they made a Martian Manhunter figure for that movie, it'd sell very well. And people wouldn't even know who was behind the mask, you know what I'm saying? So I think that this is going to be very interesting going forward. Companies can't bend the will, or bend the knee, I suppose, to the will of these people. These people are going to find out very quickly, I think, if you're talking now of lying, that you're going to be removed fairly quickly. They've done so with this individual. And I'm sure he won't give up now in terms of he's going to have a Twitter following, he's going to have an online presence, and he's going to try and go in a crusade with this one. It'd be interesting to see what happens now, because after Jason Momoa kind of publicly supporting him, like the company slapped the wrists of Jason Momoa. We'll wait and see on that one. I have a video coming up on Jason Momoa soon, and something that he's done very recently. That's a very strange decision to make, but however, we will talk about it in that video. Are any of these actors as well that he felt like close confidants? Is there anybody within that bracket that's giving him work somewhere else or going to help him to get work? What about the likes of Jason Momoa? Is he going to try and help Ray Fisher get on with his career and put him on shows or movies that he's in? What about Gal Gadot, who seemed to lend her hand to a bit of support for him? Is she going to do it? If these people don't stand by him, it certainly says an awful lot in my opinion, and I think that this guy is probably taking the wrong option. He's taking a bad option. I think his career is going to torpedo now. It's unfortunate because this is, I suppose, the business that he's in. It's very quick to end the career of other people, and they just look at it as it's dime a dozen. And he's certainly not a Brad Pitt or anything like that, you know. So I don't think the company are going to be too worried about it. That's my video today. I hope you liked the video. Share the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, check out the links down below, and I'll talk to you again soon. Good luck.